11:47 p.m., Donald J. Trump received a message he was never supposed to see. A plain white envelope, no return address, no official markings. It sat dead center on his desk at Mar-a-Lago as if it had materialized out of thin air. Trump leaned forward, eyes narrowing. He had received countless messages over the years, threats, warnings, secrets, but this one was different. He opened it, unfolding a single sheet of crisp, white paper. There is a room in the Secret Service headquarters no president has ever seen. Inside it lies a truth that will rewrite history. Come alone, midnight. If you refuse, the world will change without you. Trump exhaled, the weight of the words pressing against his chest. Who sent this? Why? And more importantly, what the hell was in that room? He picked up his phone, ready to call his closest security team, but something made him stop. If this was real, if it was bigger than anything he had ever been told, then calling his team might compromise everything. If the sender wanted him alone, there was a reason. So, for the first time in years, Donald J. Trump decided to walk into a place of power completely alone. By 11:58 p.m., Trump's black SUV pulled up to the Secret Service headquarters in Washington, D.C. The building loomed under the dim glow of streetlights, its facade cold and imposing. Inside, Secret Service agents were wrapping up their late-night shifts when they saw him step out. "Sir," one of them called, confused, "we weren't expecting you tonight." Trump adjusted his red tie, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, well, neither was I." There was something about his voice, an edge they had never heard before. The agent hesitated before speaking into his earpiece. "Get Agent Derek Coleman, now." Minutes later, Agent Derek Coleman appeared, a man who had served under multiple presidents. Unlike the others, he wasn't surprised to see Trump here. Coleman didn't ask why he had come. Instead, he nodded. "Follow me, sir." Without another word, Trump walked with him down a hallway he had never seen before. This wasn't the West Wing-style section of the building where presidents received briefings. This was different. The walls were steel. The air smelled sterile. The lights were dim, casting long shadows over the floor. At the end of the corridor was an unmarked elevator. No buttons, no floor numbers, just a single biometric scanner. Coleman pressed his thumb against the scanner. A soft beep echoed. The elevator doors slid open. Trump hesitated for the first time that night. "Where are we going?" he asked. Coleman looked him dead in the eye. "To the one place no president has ever been allowed to go." Trump clenched his jaw. Then he stepped inside. The elevator began its silent descent. Not to another briefing room, not to the classified intelligence offices Trump had visited countless times. This was deeper, way deeper. The digital panel didn't show numbers, it simply showed a slow-moving progress bar. Trump could feel it in his gut. They weren't just going to another floor, they were going underground. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the doors slid open. What lay beyond was unlike anything he had ever seen. A long, sterile corridor lined with reinforced glass panels. Dim blue lights pulsed in rhythm, casting eerie shadows. At the end of the corridor, one room stood apart from the rest. Behind the thick glass was a single desk, and on top of it sat a black folder with his name stamped on the cover. Donald J. Trump Coleman. Exhaled. "This is why we called you, sir." Trump stepped toward the glass. The folder sat in the center of the desk, perfectly placed as if waiting for him. Something about it felt wrong. "Open it," Coleman said quietly. The door to the room hissed open as Trump walked inside. He reached for the folder, feeling the cool, smooth surface beneath his fingertips. Slowly, he flipped it open. Inside was a document with a seal he didn't recognize. His pulse quickened as he read the first line. Executive Directive 119, the continuation of government without the sitting president. He blinked, read it again. What the hell? The next page contained classified photos. Some he recognized. Former presidents, military officials, CIA directors, but some he had never seen before. And then, near the bottom of the page, his own face stared back at him. Beside his picture was a timestamp, January 20, 2017, the day he took office. His heart pounded in his ears. He turned to Coleman. "What the hell is this?" Coleman's face was grim. "This, Mr. President, is the reason you were never truly in control." Trump turned the pages, his hands shaking. The documents detailed an operation so secret, so buried, that not even the sitting president was allowed to know about it. In the event of a presidency deemed uncontrollable, the United States government will enact a covert transition of power. Uncontrollable? His breath caught as he reached a final paragraph, written in bold red ink. Initiated, January 2017. Status, active. The room felt colder. He clenched his fists. His voice was low, dangerous. "Are you telling me I was never actually running this country?" Coleman nodded. "You were in charge of the show, Mr. President, but someone else was running the country." For the first time in his life, Donald Trump felt powerless. A shadow government had existed beneath his own presidency. Pulling the strings, making the decisions. Pulling the strings. Pull and pull, controlling everything, and now he had seen it with his own eyes. He shut the folder and looked at Coleman. "Who's behind this?" Coleman hesitated. Then he whispered two words. "You know." Trump's blood ran cold, and then the lights cut out, a siren blared, a voice crackled over the speakers. "Mr. Trump, you weren't supposed to see that." The lights went out. A low siren blared through the underground corridors of the Secret Service headquarters. A cold, mechanical voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Trump, you weren't supposed to see that." Donald Trump's blood ran cold. A second ago, he had been staring at a classified folder, one that confirmed a hidden government had been operating beneath his presidency, a government he had never controlled. Now everything had changed. He heard hurried footsteps approaching. Shadows moved in the darkness. Trump clenched his fists. He turned to Agent Derek Coleman, the man who had led him here. "What the hell is happening?" he demanded. Coleman reached inside his suit, pulling out a handgun. His voice was tight. "They're coming." Trump took a step forward. "Who's coming?" Coleman didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed Trump by the shoulder and shoved him behind a reinforced metal console. "Stay down," he hissed. A second later, gunfire erupted. The underground corridor lit up with flashes of gunfire. Silent shots, precise, lethal. Trump crouched low, heart pounding. His breath came fast. In the darkness, he saw figures in black tactical gear swarming into the room. They weren't regular Secret Service. They moved with military precision. They were here to eliminate him. Coleman fired back, dropping two of them instantly. The others scattered, taking cover. Trump's mind raced. How did they know he was here? How did they react so fast? Coleman reloaded, his face grim. "We don't have much time." Trump clenched his jaw. "You knew this would happen." Coleman didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed Trump's arm. "We have to move, now." Trump wasn't the kind of man to take orders, but right now he had no choice. He followed Coleman, sprinting down the narrow hallway, bullets ricocheting off the walls behind them. They weren't going to let him leave alive. Coleman led Trump to an unmarked steel door. He slammed his fist against a hidden panel. The door hissed open, revealing a dark tunnel stretching deep underground. Trump's eyes widened. "What the hell is this?" Coleman didn't answer. He grabbed Trump by the arm and pulled him inside. Behind them, the gunmen were closing in. Just as the door slammed shut, Trump heard something that made his skin crawl. "Seal the exits! No one leaves alive!" The tunnel was long, dark, and cold. The walls were lined with reinforced steel. It wasn't some old emergency exit, this was something else. Trump caught his breath. "Where the hell are we?" Coleman glanced at him. "A place you were never supposed to know about." Trump wiped sweat from his brow. "And where does it lead?" Coleman hesitated. Then he said, "Underneath the White House." Trump froze. Coleman kept moving. "There's something you need to see, Mr. President." Trump's mind raced. A secret tunnel beneath Secret Service headquarters leading directly to the White House, and he had never been told about it? His voice was low. Who built this? Coleman's answer sent a chill down Trump's spine. The people who have been running this country for decades. Trump felt sick. He had spent 4 years fighting the deep state, but this was bigger than he had imagined. Much bigger. They reached the end of the tunnel. A single, vault-like door stood before them. No handles, no keypads, just a retinal scanner. Coleman motioned for Trump to step forward. Look into the scanner. Trump hesitated. Why? Coleman's voice was calm. Because they're expecting you. A cold chill ran down Trump's spine. Who? Who the hell was waiting for him? Trump exhaled, then leaned in. The scanner whirred to life, scanning his eyes. A loud click echoed. The door unlocked. Trump braced himself and stepped inside. The room beyond was massive, a hidden chamber beneath Washington, D.C. At the center was a long, circular table. Seated around it were 12 people. Men, women, some elderly, some middle-aged, but all of them had one thing in common: power. Power that surpassed the presidency. Trump recognized some of them: former intelligence officials, CEOs of corporations, even a few world leaders who were supposed to be long retired. He narrowed his eyes. What is this? One of the men leaned forward. His gray eyes were sharp as steel. Welcome, Mr. President, we've been waiting for you. Trump's heart pounded. Who were these people, and what the hell did they want from him? The gray-ained man folded his hands on the table. You have 2 choices, Mr. Trump. 1, you walk away now, we erase what you've seen, you go back to your life, you never speak of this again. Or 2, you join us and you learn the real truth. Trump stared at them. His whole life he had fought to be in control, but tonight he had seen what true power looked like, and now he had to make a choice. He took a deep breath, and then the room went silent. The gray man smiled. You already know what you're going to do, don't you? J. Trump sat in a high-backed leather chair, staring at the 12 figures seated around the circular table. This wasn't a government meeting or some deep state briefing. This was something older, something more powerful. The man with the gray eyes leaned forward, his voice calm, too calm. You already know what you're going to do, don't you? Trump exhaled, running a hand through his hair. That depends. What the hell is this? The gray-eyed man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. This, Mr. Trump, is the real government. Silence filled the room as Trump's pulse pounded. I was the President of the United States. I was the one in charge. A woman across the table let out a soft, amused chuckle. Were you? Trump felt a chill crawl down his spine. You were the face, Mr. President, but we made the decisions. His jaw clenched. So, what? You're telling me every move I made was controlled? The gray-eyed man tapped a file sitting in front of him. Not controlled. Guided. Trump's hands curled into fists. Bullshit. The man simply nodded. Do you remember what happened on January 6, 2021? Trump's eyes darkened. Of course I do. And do you think you were the only one responsible for what unfolded? A slow, sinking realization hit Trump like a freight train. Someone else had been pulling the strings, playing both sides, and he had never seen it coming. Trump sat back, his mind racing. I don't buy it. You're telling me there's a group outside the government that runs everything? That's insane. The woman across the table smiled. Is it? The gray-eyed man gestured toward a massive screen behind him, which flickered to life, displaying classified documents Trump had never seen. You were elected in 2016. But long before you ever announced your campaign, we already knew you were coming. The screen flashed through a series of events. Financial movements, stock manipulations, global meetings. Every candidate is vetted. Some are chosen, some are obstacles. You were an obstacle. Trump's chest tightened. The woman spoke again. You weren't supposed to win, Mr. Trump. The words hung in the air like a loaded gun. You disrupted the system. But disruptions can be controlled. The screen changed again, revealing a new document stamped at the top in red ink. Operation Stabilization. Trump leaned in. His name was on the document, underneath a list of high-ranking military officials, intelligence directors, and foreign leaders. The night you won, this plan was activated. You weren't in charge, we were. Trump gritted his teeth. So why am I here? If you controlled everything, why the hell didn't you just get rid of me? The gray-eyed man chuckled. We tried. Trump's stomach tightened. The impeachments, the relentless investigations, the media attacks. It wasn't just politics, it was them. You survived, Mr. Trump. That's why you're here. The gray-eyed man leaned forward, folding his hands. You have a choice. Walk away now and this never happened. Or join us. Trump's jaw clenched. And if I say no? The man's eyes darkened. Then you won't leave this room alive. A cold silence filled the chamber. Trump took a slow breath, his mind calculating. They had controlled everything, every presidency, every war, every scandal, and now they wanted him to be part of it. He looked at the folder again, at his own name written in the ink of a system older than any election. And then Trump smirked. I don't take orders from anyone. The room went silent. The gray-eyed man sighed, almost disappointed. I was afraid you'd say that. A second later, the walls trembled, the sirens blared, the room was being locked down, and men with guns stepped inside. Coleman grabbed Trump's arm. Run! Trump didn't hesitate. The doors slammed shut behind them as bullets tore through the air. They sprinted down the tunnel, the sound of boots thundering behind them. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about America itself. He had uncovered the biggest secret in history, and now they were going to bury him with it. Donald Trump ran. Behind him, the underground chamber exploded into chaos. Alarms blared. Gunfire ripped through the corridor. Shadows of armed operatives closed in fast. Beside him, Agent Derek Coleman shoved a fresh magazine into his handgun. His voice was tight. Keep moving, sir. Trump's breath came hard. His heart pounded. This was it. He had spent 4 years fighting the deep state. But tonight, he had come face to face with something far worse, something ancient, something real, and now they wanted him dead. They reached a fork in the underground corridor. One tunnel led toward an exit Coleman swore was clear, the other, a dead end. Trump didn't hesitate. He grabbed Coleman's arm and yanked him toward the dead-end tunnel. Coleman's eyes widened. Sir? Trump didn't stop. Trust me. Behind them, the sound of boots grew louder. They rounded a corner, and there it was, a reinforced steel door. No handles, no keypads, just solid metal. Coleman turned, weapon raised. We're trapped. Trump wiped the sweat from his brow. Not yet. He had noticed something earlier. The heat patterns on the floor. The door wasn't just a dead end, it was hiding something. He reached up, running his hand along the edges. Then he felt it. A small indentation, a hidden panel. He pressed it. With a hiss, the entire door slid open, revealing a secret elevator. Coleman let out a breath. You've got to be kidding me, Trump grinned. You think I made it through 4 years without learning a thing or two? They jumped inside and Trump slammed the control button. Just as the elevator doors slid shut, gunfire shredded the walls outside. They were seconds from death. But they were still alive, for now. The elevator shot upward, fast, too fast for a normal structure. Coleman glanced at Trump. Where the hell is this taking us? Trump exhaled. If I'm right, it's the only way out. Coleman frowned. And if you're wrong? Trump gave a smirk. Then we're gonna have one hell of a story. The elevator stopped abruptly. The doors hissed open. What they saw left them speechless. They were standing inside a hidden chamber directly beneath the White House. And in the center of the room, a massive control panel, flickering with ancient government directives. Project Phoenix. Phoenix brilliance absolutely overwhelming, protecting the defense system of the United States for 3,963 decades. Coleman's breath hitched. Phoenix's brilliant eyes, the notes of accumulation found 40 years ago, distinctly still revealed the depth and degree of pressure. The day JFK was assassinated. Trump stepped forward, scanning the files, and then he saw his own name. Stamped in bold ink, Donald J. Trump. Final target, PFD, Eaton. A chill ran down his spine. Coleman's grip tightened on his weapon. They were planning this from the start. Trump swallowed hard. Not just me, every president since Kennedy. The moment a president steps out of line, they erase them. A new sound filled the air. Footsteps. They weren't alone. From the shadows, the gray-aimed man emerged. His suit was still perfectly pressed. His expression, calm, like he had expected this all along. "Mr. Trump," he said smoothly, "you've proven difficult." Trump's fists clenched. "So, what now? You kill me? Cover it up?" The man tilted his head. "Perhaps. Or you listen to reason." Coleman's hand hovered over his gun. "You've got 5 seconds to explain yourself." The gray-eyed man simply smiled. "Do you really think America can function without us?" Trump said nothing. The man continued. "We keep the world stable. We eliminate threats, foreign and domestic. We control the uncontrollable." His eyes darkened. "And you, Mr. Trump, have become uncontrollable." Silence. Trump gritted his teeth. "So, what's your offer?" The man leaned forward. "Step away. Disappear. Let history move on." Trump exhaled. He could do it. He could walk away, go back to Mar-a-Lago, live the rest of his life in peace. But then he thought about everything they had done, how they had played every president, how they had manipulated every war, every crisis, every election. His voice was low. "Don't walk away." The gray-aimed man sighed. "Shame." Then he snapped his fingers, and the room filled with armed men. Coleman fired first. The room erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through the air, sparks flew. Trump dove behind the control panel, grabbing a fallen operative's gun. He turned and fired. One by one, the operatives dropped. But more kept coming. Coleman was hit, a bullet grazing his shoulder. Trump grabbed him, pulling him to cover. "Stay with me," Coleman grunted. "We're outnumbered." Trump scanned the room, and then he saw one last control switch. Emergency shutdown. A final choice. If he hit it, the entire underground system would collapse. It would bury the truth forever, but it would also bury the men hunting him. He locked eyes with Coleman. "You ready?" Coleman nodded. "Do it." Trump took a deep breath and slammed his hand down on the switch. The ground rumbled violently. Steel beams groaned. The ceiling cracked open. Trump grabbed Coleman. "Move!" They sprinted for a nearby exit as the chamber collapsed behind them. The gray-eyed man shouted, but his words were lost in the deafening roar of destruction. Trump and Coleman burst through a final doorway and into daylight. They were outside. Somehow, they had made it. Behind them, the ground caved in, sealing the underground system forever, and with it, the deepest secret in American history. 2 days later, Trump sat in Mar-a-Lago, staring at the ocean. Coleman sat across from him, his arm in a sling. "So what now?" Trump smirked. "They think they won." He held up a single flash drive. "But I took everything before I hit that switch." Coleman's eyes widened. "You mean?" Trump grinned. "The truth is still out there." He leaned back. "And I'm gonna make damn sure the world sees it."